graduate classes and an internship at Bowling Green State University. She has an advanced certification as a lifestyle eating and performance therapist for training and management of food sensitivities, allergies, and intolerances. In 2012, she founded Forever Nutritious and provides clients with an integrated and personalized approach to nutrition, health, and healing. This is the line I really love. She believes that food is truly medicine, providing a whole person-centered approach to sustain optimal health. She collaborates with healthcare professionals addressing underlying causes of disease. She has a big interest in creating nutrition department programs, individualized nutrition interventions for clients that inspire behavioral changes. Let's see, she has a big knowledge in specialty areas of gastrointestinal distress, it's big for us, hormone imbalance, mental health, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. She's really into empowering others on their journey to living a healthy life, and approaches everything with the idea that the mind and the body are one.
That's wonderful. Very good introduction. Thank you. Well, I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm actually recording this, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that it all turns out, because there's a lot of requests for this presentation, and just to save some trees, it's nice not to have to print everything. So we're going to talk about gastrointestinal issues and how it's related to Sjogren syndrome, and throughout the presentation, I'm going to address that as SS, and any IBS or irritable bowel syndrome would be IBS. And then also, we're going to look at advanced research in food sensitivities, as well as food sensitivities' impact on autoimmune and inflammatory conditions. And then we're going to talk about creating an anti-inflammatory diet. And I know you guys are probably very aware of that word, so it's really important to see how it, an elimination and a reintroduction diet can be personalized to you. And then we're going to look at understanding the components of nutrient deficiencies, the impact of friendly gut bacteria, and the coordination of quality of care. And there were some questions that were emailed over the past week that I will be addressing as well. And that's going to be towards the end, which will be, you know, why we're talking more about friendly gut bacteria and why we're talking about coordination of care, and as well as the nutrient deficiencies. So there is a lot to cover. And I always say that nutrition is a journey. There's tiers to nutrition. So in here, there might be some areas that are a little bit more scientific, but I think that it's important to understand a little bit about that science, because if we can understand that, then we understand why we're being affected by certain conditions. I just kind of want to have a little icebreaker here and, you know, ask if any of you are struggling with some of these symptoms. So maybe you're feeling tired, achy, or sore, or you have a hard time thinking, or you have heartburn nowadays, or in foods that you're struggling with eating foods that you could have had in the past, but now they're just causing a lot of issues. They could be diarrhea, they could be bloating, they could be abdominal pain. So just kind of sit back and kind of reflect on some of these symptoms and ask yourself, are these some of the things that you're really struggling with from a day-to-day? And these are, you know, not a be-all, end-all symptoms. I know there's tons of symptoms that people experience that actually are related to digestive issues. So actually, SS affects the entire body, and one of the biggest components of that is gastrointestinal tract. So recent studies have been showing that those that have SS actually have a ton of IBS issues. So it's not just like celiac sprue or gastritis, they're actually struggling with IBS symptoms. So diarrhea, belching, heartburn, nausea. And so a lot of times with inflammatory and autoimmune conditions, we're finding out that a lot of it's starting in your gut. So we really want to heal the gut. All right, so food and food chemical sensitivities actually still remain one of the most under-addressed part in conventional medicine, okay? It's an area that a conventional medicine doesn't really go to, and let's see, I started working with food sensitivities 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, food sensitivities was like FUBU. You know, it's like no one talked about it. They didn't believe that foods were really causing a lot of issues. And since there's been a lot more advanced research, I'm going to go into an observational study that actually was done this last year in 2015. And showing that hypersensitivities to particular foods, actually getting these offending foods out of your body can actually help alleviate your symptoms. So findings are concluding that just eliminating gluten, and over the past few years, there's been this big boom in gluten-free, dairy-free diets, paleo diets, and things like that, and that just avoiding gluten is not going to just solve the puzzle. Okay, it's not going to give you all the answers, and patients are still struggling with symptoms even though they're going on a gluten-free diet. So I've seen a lot of this in my office. It is necessarily a fad, but at the same time there is a lot of research behind it. But it's not just about gluten. There's other foods that can affect your body as well. And GI disease and SS is related to those food hypersensitivities. And hypersensitivities mean you're very sensitive to food. And diets that eliminate these foods actually has resolution of your symptoms. So you don't have symptoms anymore. Or the symptoms are reoccurring when you reintroduce those foods into your diet again. So this is an observational study that was actually done out of a university. It was an autoimmune disease clinic. And they had 10 clients, a group that they looked at that were actually diagnosed with SS and irritable bowel syndrome, as well as celiac flu. One client had celiac disease. So they had presenting symptoms of abdominal pain, they had bloating, they had diarrhea, and then they also had some other symptoms like fatigue, as well as joint pain that were in more of their wrists, their knees, and their ankles. So all of these patients had undergone endoscopies and colonoscopies, and like I said, one was diagnosed with celiac disease. So all the patients had some degree of malabsorption as well. So there were a variety of different deficiencies and different vitamins and minerals, and every single client actually was deficient in vitamin D. So their levels were less than 20, where the normal range should be 30 to 100. And working with my clients, this is across the board. I would say especially in Minnesota, everybody is deficient in vitamin D. I've seen numbers as low as 9. And this affects a variety of different things. This affects fatigue. This affects depression. Being low in vitamin D can cause weight issues. It causes autoimmune issues. And so when patients actually restricted their diet of hypersensitivity, the foods they were sensitive to, their GI symptoms were eliminated. And their fatigue wasn't necessarily eliminated just by eliminating the foods, but it was also, it was helped by addressing those underlying metabolic disorders, so addressing deficiencies. So if you're deficient in vitamin D, if you eliminate a reactive food, that necessarily wouldn't take care of being tired per se. So getting that vitamin D up, getting the rest of those nutrients up is what helps with the fatigue. So you can kind of see that it's not just about taking foods out, but it's about putting different nutrients into your body and nourishing it. And it's very specific, tailored approach. So that's just an observational study, just to, because a lot of people ask, what's the research behind this? And it's growing. And that's awesome that we're really having a lot of that. More in conventional medicine now, too, they're coming around and really seeing how nutrients are impacting the body, and more because all the clients are, that I see, are looking for answers. They're saying, hey, this medication doesn't work, or even though I've done this, I'm still struggling. I think food is, causing a problem. So I think that clients and patients are actually the biggest advocates in helping to drive some more of this research. So I'm going to kind of switch into the gut's job, and this can help you understand a little bit more about how the gut impacts, the symptoms that you may be experiencing. So the gut actually breaks down and digests your foods, and you need adequate amounts of stomach acid, digestive enzymes, and bile to make this happen. And so I'm going to come back and I'm going to address stomach acid specifically with one of the questions that was asked by one of the participants here. So just kind of remember how important that stomach acid is. And so also the gut lets you absorb amino acids. Okay, amino acids are proteins, so your gut's absorbing proteins, your gut is absorbing fats, your gut's absorbing sugars, vitamins, minerals, and it's all done through a very thin layer, okay, a cell wall. I'm going to show you a picture of that. And that's how it needs to be properly nourished. The gut also keeps out all the bad stuff. So believe it or not, your gut is actually helping to prevent like nasty toxins. So it's fighting bacteria, it's fighting viruses and different chemicals. And you need to make sure that you have a good balance of this healthy bacteria in your gut to actually produce vitamins and minerals. And the gut, this is my favorite part about the gut, is that 60 to 70% of your immune system is in your gut. 67% of your immune system is in your gut. So you have to treat your gut. You treat your gut, you treat, the rest of your body, okay? So what happens is sometimes when we think about, Sjogren syndrome, we hear a lot about tears, right? Saliva and medications that can really help that. But we want to get to all the symptoms that you're experiencing, because it's not just about tears, it's not just about saliva and having dry mouth or dry eyes. It's really getting into the gut and addressing what's going on in the gut so that you can help some of those problems, okay? And so if you're deficient in a variety of different vitamins and minerals, then that's going to affect the production of your tears and your saliva. So this is just kind of showing what a compromised intestinal tract. So if you have enzyme deficiencies, nutrient deficiencies, autoimmune, food allergies, sensitivities, and intolerances, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of high over what is the difference between a food allergy, sensitivity, and intolerances. But if those are compromised, then, and you're having those problems, then your gut isn't working to its best. So this is where we switch into understanding what is a food allergy and a sensitivity. So each one of these areas of food allergy, a sensitivity, and intolerance has, so much information, and it can be very overwhelming, and we don't have time to talk about each one individually. So we're going to kind of talk about the big basics of food allergy, sensitivities, and intolerances, and then I'm going to go into food sensitivities. Food sensitivities is what I've been working with for the last eight years, and that's how I've seen it impact inflammatory and autoimmune conditions. I still also work with allergies, but as you can see right here, a food allergy, the difference between a food allergy and a sensitivity is they both involve the immune system. Okay, right? But a food allergy only affects 1 to 2% of the population. Okay, that's not a lot. And food sensitivity affects 20 to 30% of the population. And food sensitivities are more involved with autoimmune and inflammatory conditions than food allergies or intolerances. Okay, so a food intolerance, they can have very similar symptoms. So you can have gas, you can have bloating, you can have loose stools or diarrhea, and there could be fructose malabsorption where there could be a lot more like stomach ache. So that can easily be confused with a food sensitivity or an allergy. But the intolerance does not involve the immune system. Okay, and intolerance just means that you don't have the digestive enzymes. Okay. For example, you don't have lactase to break down the lactose that's coming in from milk, okay, for example, or ice cream, and that's going to be a more immediate result. So if you understand those three differences, it's a lot easier to understand how a food is affecting your body and pinpoint things. So with a food allergy, the symptoms occur within seconds to like 1 hour, and a lot of times they subside within 45 minutes or so, and the reaction occurs every time and very shortly after you eat something. A lot of times it affects more of like the skin, the airways, and the gastrointestinal tract. And those that have IBS, only 5 to 7% actually is that those symptoms related to their food allergies. Okay, so when we look at food sensitivities, and this is specifically looking at, there's different types of tests for food sensitivity. This one is specifically looking at mediators. Okay, and I'm going to explain all that. So this is caused by the release of toxic chemicals. Okay, so you've probably heard of histamine and that you take a Benadryl to bring down your histamine, right? Well, I like to find out why is our histamine up in the first place, right? Not just take a medication to suppress it and bring it down, but actually take out the offending. In this case, we look at foods, right, or chemicals. So that's your white blood cells are releasing these chemicals, okay? And these chemicals can affect any organ in your entire body. And the symptoms can occur within 45 minutes. And they could occur within 45 minutes, but they could also occur 3 days later. Because these foods don't clear from your body. It takes like 4 days to clear from your body. So you could eat something on Monday and not have a symptom all the way until like Wednesday or Thursday. Okay? So that's making it really hard to diagnose food sensitivities. That's why they're misdiagnosed. And they're, like I said earlier, they're frequently involved in triggering that autoimmune and inflammatory condition. And this is not testing for celiac. Okay? So this is non-celiac inflammatory reactions. Okay, so that's a whole other area, is like addressing, not just food allergies, sensitivities, and tolerances, but also addressing celiac disease. And this, you can see here that up to 65% of IBS patients actually attribute their symptoms to food sensitivities. So I want to kind of explain this because this is where it gets a little overwhelming, but I want you to understand like what's happening in your body when you eat a food that you're reactive to, okay? So your white blood cells are there. They're your immune cells. That's what a white blood cell is there, okay? They're there for good health and protection, and they help fight illness, and they help fight disease. And when your immunity cells are at war, they're constantly flowing through your blood, and they're trying to destroy any substances. So any bacteria, any viruses, they flag any foreign invaders. And what they do is when they flag them, they say, hey, there's this bad guy in my blood. It's not supposed to be here. It's going to release these mediators, these chemicals, okay? So this is an example of what this looks like. So this is a picture. This is your gut. So remember when I said I was going to go to a picture, I was going to show you what your gut looks like. So this is your villi, and all of your villi absorb vitamins and minerals, okay? And certain foods can actually pry open your gut. So this is supposed to be closed. These foods are not supposed to leak in here. They're supposed to be broken down, and they're supposed to be absorbed. All the vitamins, all the minerals are supposed to be absorbed in your intestinal tract. And if you have a leaky gut, you've probably heard of that term, right? Okay, well then all those foods are flowing right into your bloodstream, and they're not supposed to be there. So your body is flagging it and saying it's a bad guy, it's causing inflammation, all these mediators are coming to attack it, and then all of a sudden you get all these symptoms, okay? So that's one component. And so it's really important that we heal that. We don't want that to happen. And you heal that by taking out those offending foods. You heal that by getting in the nutrients, because if you don't have the right amount of zinc, and you don't have the right amount of iron, and you don't have the right amount of vitamin D, then this isn't healthy. And that's never ever going to get fixed, okay? So when you think about food sensitivities, we want to think about the release of histamine and cytokines and all that kind of stuff. Those are, the chemical terms, right? And that basically what happens is when you do food sensitivity testing is they actually test your blood, and they look at your white blood cells. And if the volume of that white blood cell actually goes down, we know that there's been a reactivity to that food when they test it against the food. So unless all reactive foods and chemicals are actually identified and eliminated from your diet, you're not going to achieve optimal results. You're still going to keep struggling. You haven't gotten to the root cause of the problem yet. So why are food sensitivities hard to identify? I talked a little bit about this earlier, but delayed by hours, okay? It's also dose dependent. So you could eat a little bit of something. It's not going to really affect you. You eat a lot of something, and it does. Reactive foods vary from person to person. So this is why when people come in and they're frustrated that why am I following a gluten-free diet and I'm still not feeling 100%, maybe I felt a little better, or dairy, and then they don't do it long enough and they throw it out the window. But it's also the fact that there could be healthy foods that are actually affecting them. So it could be salmon, it could be blueberries, it could be whatever, because if that gut isn't healed, that food's leaking in and the body's seen as an invader. So it's very, very specific and individualized to each and every person. So it's not like this cookie cutter approach. And so there's 7 different types of food sensitivity reactions as well. And what that just means is that there's different pathways. So there's different mediators and different ways that it can be become a reaction. So why would you develop these food sensitivities? I kind of talked about this a little bit more as well in that previous picture, but poor digestion, okay? Unbalanced gut flora, not having good bacteria in your gut. You have overgrowth of really bad bacteria. And I know you guys probably may have heard of that because I know there's been some questions about taking the right amount of bacteria, and we'll address that as well. Chronic stress, severe trauma, this weakens your immune system, okay? A lot of people have a lot of sensitivities because of that. Inflammation is huge. It's the biggest number one driver. Medications. So medications have a lot of adverse effects. So you might be taking a medication for something, but then all of a sudden you have a laundry list of, you know, the negative things that could happen with it as well. Diet, genetics. When we think about diet and also think about toxics-induced issues, so chemicals, there's so many fertilizers, pesticides, just a variety of stuff that's being sprayed on our food. Foods are becoming genetically modified, so scientists are altering them so they can look better or, you know, sustain other diseases. But at the same time, those chemicals are causing toxic, you know, burden to our body. And if your immune system is compromised, it's just going to become more and more compromised if you don't get all of the different types of toxins out and if you don't heal that gut. So also constantly, this is a big one, constantly eating the exact same foods over and over and over and over again. So when someone comes in, you know, they may have, you know, cereal for breakfast and that has wheat, and then they might have pasta for dinner, or they might have had like wheat crackers for a snack, and then all of a sudden they had dairy 3 times a day, you know, a glass of milk with every meal, yogurt, may have ice cream. So you're getting like 2 foods, huge foods. You're getting dairy, okay, and you're getting wheat at every single meal, every single day. The antigens never get to clear from your system, and guess what? Those are actually the biggest foods for food allergies in the first place. But yet we eat it all day long. It's always there. Same thing with soy, same thing with corn, same thing with was another one, eggs. That's another huge one. And so we're seeing a lot of these similar issues with a lot of foods, but then these main foods are also causing it so that other foods become reactive as well. So we want to make sure that we're getting to the root cause. So why didn't my symptoms resolve on whatever diet that you're having? A lot of times I would say it's paleo, you know, or a gluten or dairy. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of success following some of these diets as well. But I see that a lot of people switch to high-fine, refined, gluten-free products, okay? So all of a sudden we get gluten out, and I love this actually, that I love that our industry is paying attention to these needs of needing to be gluten-free. But what I don't love is that all of a sudden they're pushing all these high sugar, carb products, and so all of a sudden it says gluten-free, and then someone grabs it and they really don't understand, oh my gosh, there's all this other junk in here, all this other stuff that could be causing an autoimmune condition or an inflammatory response. So I think it's really important not to just switch to these, you know, gluten-free products. The elimination diet was not done properly. Maybe you avoided the wrong foods. Maybe you only avoided the foods for a week, and maybe your body needs 3 to 6 months to actually calm the immune system. Maybe you did not reintroduce the non-reactive foods properly, okay? And then there also could be this lack in advanced procedures or testing. You could have celiac disease, fructose malabsorption, lactose intolerance. There could be, you know, a food allergy, a food sensitivity, a food intolerance. So it's not understanding and then all of a sudden just going and avoiding foods because you read it on the internet or a friend told you or the doctor kind of recommended something. It's not just really taking the time to look at the entire picture and how that's really affecting your body. There could be deficiencies in nutrients or enzymes and that imbalanced gut microbiome. So I'm going to jump into an elimination diet, and that's what I do with all of my clients. So for the last 8 years, I've worked with elimination diets, okay? And so this is how I move forward with an elimination diet. And then I'm going to talk about a reintroduction and how that's my favorite part, is actually the reintroduction, because the elimination diet, it's kind of scary when you think about an elimination diet. Oh my gosh, I have to eliminate all these foods, and most likely they're foods I eat every day. So that's only the one aspect, and it's a really important part, but it's not what's going to help you always get all the results, okay? So when you do an elimination diet, You might have read on their internet or heard from their people that you do it for like a week or a few weeks. I recommend eliminating foods for 3 to 6 months, because oftentimes it takes the immune system about 3 to 6 months to calm down. You can see results right away when you eliminate foods within like that first week, because you're already calming the immune system down. But remember, you have to heal the gut. You have to get all the nutrients back in. You have to, get the digestive enzymes working properly. So that first step of eliminating is, super important. And so I like to have the red foods, the highly reactive foods that my clients come back reactive to, eliminated for 6 months. And the moderately, which are yellow, and I'll show you this on a diagram next, I like to have those eliminated for 3 months, okay? And then we'll go back and test them. Then we'll go back in after 3 to 6 months and see if they're tolerated, because if the gut's healed and you can tolerate it, then good, we can put it back in your diet and we can monitor that. I've had some clients that actually started taking out a reactive food that was red or yellow, and this is a lady actually. She had a daughter that the daughter was reactive to wheat. That was one of the things that she was reactive to, and the dad made her noodles, and she ate the noodles and her mouth got kind of puffy. Okay. And then this was just a sensitivity. She just had a sensitivity to wheat, but she had it out for a few months. Well, the mom was kind of frustrated, like, don't do that. Don't give her noodles. And so he did it again. And she ended up landing in the hospital and needing an EpiPen. And that was because this food was reactive. It was suppressing her immune system. And she put it back in again after it's been out, but she put it in too soon. And the body was like, whoa, I can't handle this. And it turned into an even bigger symptom, than what she had in the past. Before, it may have never, ever, ever been to where she needed to go to the hospital and have an EpiPen. So most food reactions are found through trial and error, okay? And this is something that you might have pinpointed. I hear this a lot from some clients that come in and they're like, I think this food, every time I have this food, it causes a stomach ache. So you start to really pinpoint this. But this is even more pinpointed when you track what you're eating and your symptoms. Super important. Probably, the best thing you could ever do is just start writing down what you're eating and start tracking. So the biggest thing about eliminating foods is making sure that you're not over eliminating things, because you could go crazy eliminating all these foods from your diet, but then you're eliminating vitamins or minerals, or you get an imbalance of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and so then all of a sudden there's even more deficiencies that happen. And this is one of my favorite things that I hear from a lot of clients, is that I didn't realize how awful I felt until I removed the trigger foods from my diet. I didn't even know I had like a problem, and then I actually started feeling way better. I didn't even know I had constipation. I didn't realize that. I didn't make that connection. So that's one of my favorite things about doing an elimination and reintroduction diet, is you actually realize that you have foods that trigger symptoms. So this is an example of a test. So this tests against 150 different foods and chemicals, and I'm just showing you 2 categories right now, half of the chemicals and the majority of the fruits. So this is showing you these are the non-reactive foods, okay, in green, okay. So if you look here, see how this papaya, okay, is almost to this line. This line is when we indicate that there was something that was moderately reactive. That's when the white blood cells were, throwing out the most mediators and reacting the most to that food, the raspberry that was tested. And then this is where they were highly reactive, so like blueberries and grapefruit for this person's case. So you can see down here, the grape, or up here, the grape, it's really, really, really low. Hardly, and the olive heart, the grape doesn't even have a green, okay? So there was like no mediators released there. Then all of a sudden we get here and more mediators were released with the foods that were yellow and red, okay? So we are gonna create, the second half is creating a diet of these non-reactive foods, and that's why we eliminate these reactive foods from the diet, okay? So I call this the ImmunoCalm Diet. You're calming your immune system. So the goal is to eliminate all the symptoms caused by your diet, and the phases are divided into the food categories, and the foods for each phase are actually selected based on that level of reactivity that I just showed you, right? So starting in phase 1, you're going to have those grapes or those olives, right? So only foods that are tested are included. So when you have a bunch of chemicals and additives and you have all this variety of different foods kind of in your diet, that's a lot of variables that you keep track of and try to identify how that's affecting your body. So with an elimination diet and a reintroduction diet, you do like 20 to 25 foods that first week, okay? So 20 to 25 foods. So then that way you can pinpoint how those foods are affecting your body. So the most difficult phase is this first phase because it's more limited. There's not a lot of variety in meal planning. And the thing though is actually when working with clients on this reintroduction diet, they're eating more foods actually. So 20 to 25 foods in a week actually seems like a lot because a lot of people, they deviate to the exact same meal or same snacks and they really only have like 10 foods right in their week, right? But this whole point of this reintroduction diet is to get variety, okay? Get variety and get nutrients. So this is my absolute favorite part. And you know, I myself struggled with a lot of inflammatory and digestive issues. And when I started working with clients, and 8 years ago, they didn't have cashew milk, okay, in the cartons. We had to make our own. And they didn't know what quinoa was, okay? It was just, chia seeds and flax seeds were like not on the shelf. They were either the very, I don't know where you probably got them at like a co-op, but it was hardly heard of, okay? And so when you start eating these foods, and when I went to school, I was taught that you need 3 servings of dairy a day, and you need 5 servings of whole grains. That's what conventional dietitians are taught. So I was doing that. I thought, I need to be healthy. I have to have 6 servings of, my grains a day. I have to have, my yogurt, and I have to have my cottage cheese. And I was sick. I woke up every single morning with nausea. I was breaking out constantly. I was switching medications to try to keep that inflammation down. And, once I started taking out the reactive foods from my diet and working with my clients, my health improved. I had variety. That opened up all these doors to actually enjoying and learning how to cook. Because before I was eating, just the toast, and I didn't make something that was like, a smoothie. I was just eating some more of these packaged types of foods that were supposed to be healthy, right? So it's really actually changed my entire career and moved me into more integrative and functional medicine and how your food really changes your body. So this is why I absolutely love the reintroduction diet, because you add one new non-reactive food every single day. And that's, whenever you have a symptom that appears, okay? So let's say you put in soy. Soy didn't come back reactive. You put it in. I usually recommend you take it out because it's probably the most genetically modified food. And you put it in, you have joint pain, okay? Take it out. That's a symptom right there. You track the food you eat, you track the symptom, okay? And then you wait, and then you add a new food from a new food in. Another thing that's really important is that foods from the same food family, okay, they look similar. So if you have, let's say you were reactive to wheat. I'm going to fast forward this to this diagram. This client was reactive to wheat, okay? Spelt was in the second phase, days 8 through 12. We wanted to make a meal with spelt in it, corn, millet. Those were all the options for the starches put into the diet. Spelt is antigenically similar to wheat. They're in the same food family. They're in the grain family. So this client was reactive to a variety of other foods in the grain family. So, and the fact that she was reactive to wheat, I wanted to take out kamut and I wanted to take out spelt, because those were the 2 foods that were in the same food family. They were genetically very, very, very similar. And so I anticipated that she would have an issue with that food. So that's why we would wait maybe 3 months and then we could try it. But, a lot of times I just feel like it causes so many issues in so many clients that I just really avoid wheat. And then that spelt and kamut since they're so close. This client, for example, reacted to beef, right? They thought that they were sensitive to beef. So we held off on putting the beef in, okay? because every time they had beef, they kind of got a stomach ache. It's going to come up on here. Could have been any other, reaction of why they're having an issue with it. But we just held off on that. So it's really being specific to you and your body. And then I'm going to go back up to this phase 1. So, and also, so like fructose. So I have a lot of clients that come in that have fructose malabsorption, or we figure out they have fructose malabsorption. And that's where they eat a lot of fructose. So interesting enough, fructose, when wheat breaks down, it breaks down into fructose. So if you have wheat at every single meal, okay, that could be very overwhelming to the body, and that's not necessarily a food sensitivity. That's that they had too much fructose coming into their body. So they need to cut back and only do, a smaller portion of fruit, or not have as much fruit throughout the day, or cut back on how much the wheat we're having if they weren't reactive to that. So it's really taking those types of things into consideration and understanding how your body's being affected. So, so these foods, those 20 to 25 foods, are consumed freely throughout that first week. And that first phase lasts about 7 days. And a lot of times what happens is when your body ends up like detoxifying, okay, when you are reactive to these foods and you take them out, you can have discharge from your ears, you can have headaches, you can have more skin rashes or something appear right away. And that's really trying to get it out. And it's very interesting is that you crave a lot of the foods you're reactive to too as well. So, and that has to do with some type of, chemical reaction of how the foods release in your body and causing a neurotransmitter response. And so usually these withdrawals last only about 4 days, okay? So it's really important to take that into consideration and know that that's normal and that should subside. And if it's not subsiding after like 7 days, then we got to figure out what's going on. But after those symptoms subside, then you move on to phase 2. So this is the next week. And this is where you continue eating from the phase 1 list, right? But you add in 1 new food every day. So I'm going to show you that diagram in a minute to kind of help you understand that. So again, from any food category on your list, you create different meals, and that's usually what I'm there to do with clients, is create, that week of meals, because it can be really overwhelming, intimidating if you don't know how to cook something, or you've never ate something, or you don't know how to find something. So it's really important that, we have a plan put together for you so that you're not struggling, ravished and, starving, and you have, the things in your cupboard to help you move forward so that you can have results. That's one of the biggest problems with moving forward with an elimination and reintroduction diet is people aren't prepared. They just start taking out this food, and the reality is it's like everywhere. It's hard to get away from. So then all of a sudden you ditch it, but then you're still feeling like crap, So I think that's really important that you're prepared. And carefully reintroducing foods helps you to fine-tune what you're eating and builds a healthy diet. Again, I'm super big into tracking. I don't feel like you have to track every calorie. You don't have to track every fat gram. The way that I look at tracking is I like to have you track your foods and have you track your symptoms, okay? So we're not obsessing over calories. We are looking at how we're becoming very in tune and looking at how a food affects our body, okay? And phases 3 through 5, you would continue. So this is basically weeks 3 through 5. So this is we're only 3 weeks in here. And there's a lot that's being accomplished in 3 weeks. And so you continue to add the new foods from phase 2, 1 per day, monitoring, and you're just, again, meal planning and tracking what your symptoms are. And then this is kind of an overview of what I just talked about. So you can see there's the 5 weeks, so basically 27 days, okay? And then you have, this is just because I couldn't fit everything on the slide. This is 1 food group, proteins, starches, and they're just showing you we can bring in some foods from these different phases as well to give more variety if they're low enough reactivity. But that's where we develop, snacks. We develop the meals from that to make sure that you're getting what you need. And then when you get into week 6 through 7, this whole part is calming your immune system, right? You're taking out the offending foods. You're calming your immune system. Now we get into week 6 and 7 and 8 and 5, and we add in foods that haven't been tested. Or we go back and maybe you didn't put salmon into your diet, or maybe you don't like tuna, so we never ever even tried tuna, okay? So you start putting in these other foods, and now what's happened is you've cut back, and now you've put in a select few foods that you know work for you, that you know don't cause any problems, okay? And then you start building, and you're building this diet that's tailored and specific to you, okay? So that's really, really important. So you know what's going on to your body. And the interesting thing is when you go out to eat and you have something like cheese curds, because it's going to happen, or you have a hamburger, and then the next day, you know, you're in bed and tossing and turning until 4 in the morning because your digestive issue, or your eyes got so much drier, or your mouth was so much drier, you can start to pinpoint, oh, that was because of what I ate, you know, the other night. And then you realize what it's like to be in balance and not struggle with all those issues, and it's what it's like to be out of balance, okay? And that's really what I feel, for me, and a lot of my other clients, motivates them to continue to follow a diet that's specific, that works for them, because they're not struggling. They're in balance. They feel better. They have more energy. They're more focused. You know, they're not tired, you know? They sleep better throughout the night. And so a lot of that health is really important to people. So this is an example of, I just took some foods from phases, right? And just showed how this is brought into an actual meal. So this is let's say someone was reacted to almond milk. Well, then there's flax milk, there's hemp milk, there's coconut milk, there's cashew milk, there's water. There's so many options, so many things that you can do. So if you see a recipe, you see something, man, I can't eat that, don't just throw the recipe out of the window. You actually can see what you could switch in and make it work for you. And then this is an example of lunch. So we're making sure we have variety. So there's protein in here. So you're getting the adequate amount of protein, 3 ounces. Water, vegetables, so like a sweet potato, even doing something like teaspoon of cinnamon. I like to put the coconut, melt that and put that on the sweet potato, and with paprika. So that's a vegetable area, and then we've got the fat area, and then you can throw some Brussels sprouts with that as well. That would be seasoned, and there you go. You've got the whole meal planned. You've got all the nutrients your body needs, and you're not actually having foods that you're reactive to. So this is an example of a smoothie, okay, recipe. Avocado. So working with clients, I would say, has helped me, like I said earlier, really get more involved in the kitchen. So you become a lot better at, you know, throwing different things together very quickly, okay? So these are just some recipes that were created based on some clients' results. And so we're going to switch into like nutrient deficiencies, okay? So that was all about an eliminating diet and reintroduction diet, okay? It's pretty intense, but it gets easier as you familiarize yourself with what you're reactive to and what you can put in. And so that's one component, okay? Finding out what you're reactive to. The other big component, probably one of the biggest components, is making sure you're addressing what you're deficient in. If you're not addressing what you're deficient in, then your immune system is going to continue to be compromised, okay? So autoimmune conditions require not only reintroducing or actually reducing, okay, your inflammatory burden, but they also work, you know, in having balance within the body. So it's dependent on how well your cells are functioning, okay? So that's kind of overwhelming when I said that. So your entire body is made up of cells, okay? Every single cell needs vitamin D and B vitamins and magnesium to work properly, okay? And when you have a autoimmune or inflammatory condition, there are certain nutrients, these ones specifically, okay, that help to restore the cell and help it not have as much damage, okay? So we're looking at glutathione, omega-3, some of these you heard of, you know, take your omega-3s, make sure you're getting your vitamin D, right? But the kicker here is that everybody's different, okay? So a lot of people, yes, are deficient in omega-3s, and that's There's, you know, a variety of reasons. Really high carbohydrate diets make us deficient in omega-3s, not getting enough omega-3s in. But I think what happens is, as well, is that we don't look at all the other vitamins and minerals. We kind of narrow in on iron and vitamin D, but we don't think as much about zinc, or if we do, then all of a sudden we're taking some supplement, right? But who's to say that we're even deficient in that? So I really like to make sure that I get a panel of my clients and find out what they're reactive to, or deficient in, sorry. So these are the specific nutrients, though, that actually overwhelm the immune system, okay, and cause an inflammatory response when you're deficient in it. So this is an example of micronutrient testing that actually looks at your white blood cells. So there's a variety of different types of nutrient testing that can be that are out there. So there's the main two. So there's red blood cells, okay, that shows an immediate response, what's going on right now in your body that you're deficient in. And there's white blood cells, and white blood cells show a 6-month time span of what you're deficient in, okay? So this is vitamin B1. So this is borderline deficient for this person. This is magnesium, where it's supposed to be. Calcium, where it's supposed to be. And this is folate. This is borderline deficient. So it's going to be deficient. So I would still address that, okay? So I really love this test, because when someone comes in and they say, hey, this is what I've been eating, a lot of times, you know, this test can help us find out, okay, what do we need to put into your diet, okay? So if you're deficient in iron, okay, low in iron, well, have you been following a vegan diet? Have you been having the right amount of protein in your diet, okay? Have you been having a high intake of calcium? Calcium depletes iron, okay? What else depletes iron is spinach, kale. There's chemicals in some of these foods that actually deplete it. So we want to look at those different types of things. We want to see, what are you eating, you know? And a lot of times you could be eating healthy, great foods, but not really realize that they have this interaction that can actually bring it down. So a deficiency in any of these nutrients opens the door to immune system dysfunction, okay, and increased autoimmunity. So this is one of my favorite two wheels here. And this is just showing you how all of these vitamins and minerals lead to inflammation, okay? So this is very interesting here, that zinc, okay, so these are some studies that show that zinc actually, inflammation raises the demand for zinc. So if your body's inflamed, you need more zinc, okay? Pro-inflammatory chemicals, so those go back to those mediators, right? Those are dependent on the zinc, getting more zinc into your diet. So Cynthia mentioned earlier that I like a whole foods approach. So I don't like to have my clients walk out of the office with a laundry list of supplements. And I'm going to talk about supplements in a minute. I like to make sure that you're getting it through foods. There are times when you need a supplement, super, super important, okay? And oftentimes I'll have clients, if they're deficient in something and we're not able to get into their diet and it's crucial, we'll start them on a supplement. Or I'll make sure that someone's on a good general multivitamin. If they're deficient in a certain amount of omega-3s, I might increase those omega-3s for a little bit and see if that helps bring down the burden on the immune system. But you don't need to have, like, 50 pills that you have to take of supplements every day. Okay, so I think that's really important to kind of say, because I think that's sometimes where we jump to if we're deficient in something. Oh, I could be deficient in zinc, I should take a zinc supplement. Well, we're going to talk about supplements and why that may not be that great of an idea. But like, for example, here, vitamin D, that also is really important for inflammation. So it helps turn off chronic inflammation response. And again, brings down that mediator response. So can you see how your diet's really important, but then also your nutrients from your diet is super, super important. Magnesium also brings down the inflammation, okay? And I'm talking about inflammation because inflammation is one of the biggest things that affects autoimmune and inflammatory conditions. So if you calm that inflammation, you bring it down, then you see results. Nutrients too work in synergy, they work in balance. So you don't want to just go out and have a ton of magnesium because you think you might be deficient, because that's going to imbalance calcium, Okay, that might imbalance some other nutrients as well, and then that can make you more deficient in another nutrient. So we don't want that to happen. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit more now about questions that were kind of asked. So I had asked Cynthia to send in any questions that anybody had, and then I would address those. So this question was, when dairy seems to be the digestive culprit and lactobacillus doesn't seem to help in the recommended dose, should one try increasing the lactobacillus amount, or does one assume that there is another component of dairy that might be causing the problem? If there is another component, what might that be, and what would be the next step to help solve the problem? So there's a few things here that I would, with this question, that I think is really important in addressing. So you can get too much good bacteria. So we don't, you know, and there's so many different strains. So we don't want to just focus on lactobacillus. There's a ton of different strains that do different things in your body. Okay, I'm gonna talk about that friendly bacteria here just to give you a little bit of a better idea. So probiotics are those live microorganisms that give proper balance into your intestinal tract. And it's essential for normal gut function. And a lot of times when you go on antibiotics, which everybody goes on a lot of antibiotics nowadays, it kills all the good bacteria and all the bad bacteria. Okay, so I think it's really important to not just focus on one strand of bacteria, but it's important to get a variety of strands because they all do different things. So they help with digestion, they help with absorption, they help with recovery from diarrhea, reducing gas or constipation. But if you get too much bacteria, there could be what's called small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, where it goes to, like, it's not, your bacteria is supposed to be in your large colon too, so it could get into your small colon what's not supposed to be. So I think you need to be careful of that. And also, when addressing this question, I would say, where are you getting your lactobacillus? Are you getting it from the yogurt? You know, because that's the big thing now, is these probiotics have, again, caught, you know, these, you know, big corporate companies' attention, and they're using it to sell their products. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy for you. They might say and have these health claims, but that doesn't mean that that's what your body needs. And you could be reactive to the dairy, and the dairy could be what's causing a lot of that issue. And so there's different components of dairy. Dairy could be the whey or the casein, which are the proteins that are found in dairy that could cause an issue. It could be a food allergy. It could be a food sensitivity. It could be lactose intolerance. It could be the sugars. So those could be causing a lot of issues. And so you could be actually eating, I don't know if it's yogurt, maybe that's what you're eating, and let's say it has that lactobacillus in it. Well, it might not have anything to do with that bacteria at all. It might be that you have all the sugar coming in, and that bacteria is trying to, in your gut, is trying to break it down, and it's not doing a good job with that. And so then you're having all these symptoms. So it could actually be the food that you're eating and how you're getting that bacteria. So when you're looking at probiotics, I think it's really important to understand, because there's a lot of supplements that are out there. They're not regulated by the government, and they put all these claims on it that this is the best probiotics ever. But probiotics, you know, it's important that it's able to doesn't get killed in your digestive tract by stomach acid, and it can get down into your colon to work properly. So how many culinary forming mutants are they? Those are like live bacteria. Are they alive? Okay. Is this culinary of bacteria that you're taking actually alive? And is it alive when it gets into your gut, or does it get killed off before it gets there to the colon? That's really important. Making sure to understand that like what are the ingredients that are also with that probiotic. So they make probiotics, they culture it in like dairy, right? So you can actually get probiotics that are not cultured with dairy. Okay, does that make sense? So that's important to look at. So if you are sensitive to dairy, and all of a sudden you're taking this lactobacillus probiotic that's, you know, got dairy in the capsule, you're going to react to that. So that's where you want to be familiar and really understand those types of things. Does that help answer that question? So the most common good bacteria is lactobacillus and the bifidobacterium, which promote the balance of that intestinal tract. So lactobacillus is the most numerous in the small intestine. So like I said, you could be having too much in there, okay, and not enough balance of some of the other bacteria. It aids in converting lactose and sugars into lactic acid, which increases your GI, the acidity in your GI tract, and it creates unfriendly environment for pathogenic bacteria. And it helps metabolize toxins, and it supports the body's natural response to inflammation. So it's probably why you're taking it, because you want to bring down the inflammation, and you heard that, but how, where, how much is really, really important. And I kind of have to know specifically the entire history, you know, to help kind of give more information than what I just gave. Bifidobacterium is another one that, and these are two of the biggest in like IBS issues. So this is the most common bacteria found in the colon, and it promotes a healthy balance of beneficial and pathogenic bacteria and can enhance normal immune response and aids in the digestive function as well. I like to look at a variety of strains. I usually recommend like 8 different strains for my clients, so you don't have a overload of just one. This is the second question. So please discuss the benefits versus the risks of taking dietary supplements with immunosuppressive medications. Patients with autoimmune diseases like Sjogren's and lupus are often prescribed immunosuppressant drugs. Some doctors then caution patients not to take the dietary supplements that boost the immune system because it works against their meds. Yet I hear of many patients taking a lot of vitamins and supplements. What is the science behind this? This is a really great question. It's hard too, because I like to work with doctors, and I know that they're prescribing a lot of medications. And so when I kind of first read this question, my first thought was, okay, we want to boost the immune system, right? Why would you want to not make sure your immune system is strong and healthy? Okay, so wouldn't you want to get down to that root cause of the problem? And maybe you could go back to your doctor and say, could I try a different medication, or could we lower the dose of the medication? Because is the medication fixing the problem? That's my first thought. And then what are the adverse effects of the medication? Okay, so what symptoms are negative that could be caused from the medication? So I think that's kind of my first thought. I think medications are needed, and it's good to have them, but I think that it's important to look at the whole picture, okay? Supplements. This goes back to my supplements. So I have some slides here that help give guidance on evaluating supplements, okay? So there's 3 major areas of concern that I would say you need to look at when you're thinking about supplements. Not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. They can put anything they want in there, and they don't have to tell you. Anything they want, okay? So yes, I think that if they're putting bad stuff in there that your body's reacting to, and it's causing issues with your immune system, then yes, I think that's a very valid point. We want to make sure that we're taking it out. But there are some supplements, like if you're deficient in something and you're not able to address it through a whole foods approach, then we may need to get your vitamin D up, right, if you're deficient in that. So this, it's important to look at credible scientific research. And I like to look for brands that have this, okay? I like to look for brands that are not just, at Target, or that are not just at Walgreens or the dollar store, okay? I like to look at brands that work with doctors. So if you're having a supplement and a brand that is promoted by a doctor, okay, or dietitians that are focused on like recommending supplements that do scientific testing in their own lab, okay, and they have doctors on board and they are doing a bunch of different scientific research, they're going to have higher, better quality supplements, okay, because they don't have to spend that money, because the supplements aren't regulated by the government, but that company is more dedicated and devoted to really helping you find, the right supplement. I also don't, I'm weary of just going on any supplement that could help with, autoimmune and inflammatory conditions, because there's, as we addressed earlier, everybody's different, okay? And so it may be a good supplement, but maybe it's not the supplement that's going to help meet your needs. Maybe there's so many other factors that need to be taken into consideration. So they can put contaminants into supplements. So that's really important to make sure that you're thinking about that. This is consumerlab.com, and ground turmeric is really big. You hear a lot about this and bringing down inflammation, right? Okay. Well, this is from 2016. Was posted in July. And it's the latest news that shows that ground turmeric spice was recalled due to a lead contamination. Okay? I would say lead would probably not be something really great for your immune system. That's a toxin, that's a burden. Okay? So this was actually recalled. It was distributed to Big Lot stores. Okay? So people buy supplements, they buy these so-called, healthier foods because there's all this rant and all this rave, over the internet, and then you go and you get it, but you don't realize it could have something that actually is going to have an adverse effect on the body. So pay attention to those types of things, okay? So they now have like turmeric in little capsules, right? Okay? So I would want to know, is it really turmeric? Or what other things are they putting in there, since the government doesn't have to regulate that? So you can go to consumerlab.com, and they have reports all the time. Product quality. So this, I've had clients that have had celiac disease, and their doctors put them on some fiber, supplement medication or something like that. This client was having so much digestive issues, and then I said, she came out with some supplement, and I read it. It was her fiber, and I'm like, well, this has gluten in it. And you were diagnosed with celiac disease. So it's really important that you're understanding what are the common allergens. So I like to go with brands that don't have these common allergens in. They don't have corn, they don't have wheat, they don't have gluten, they don't have dairy, and that's going to be from more of those manufacturers that are, targeting to work with more providers, especially those that are focusing on like more integrative functional medicine. The coatings in the shells, is it genetically modified? That's really important. Do they put extra colors, flavorings, sweeteners? You could be sensitive to blue color, green color, red color. So those are the types of things where, yeah, I think doctors a lot of times will be, scared to recommend something, because this is a lot of times what people will go out and get. Or, and this is what you think when you have a supplement. So make sure that it's product quality. It guarantees presence of key nutrients. The formulations have scientific findings. Research leads to demonstrations of, product efficiency, and that there's third-party laboratory testing. Okay, it's gone through third-party laboratory testing, and to show that it's got the highest quality in it. So this is the third question. Whenever I've asked my rheumatologist and oncologist if I should or should not eat certain foods or take supplements, I have been consistently told, eat a well-balanced diet, a little bit of everything, not too much of anything. If there were some dietary plan that has proven to be helpful, I would be the first to tell you. Is there more agreement or disagreement between dietitians and the medical community on the role of diet and supplements, and where do you agree or disagree? So I kind of fell into this world of food allergies, sensitivities, and intolerances, and integrative and functional medicine. And so, like I said earlier, I've met with a lot of dietitians that are very conventional medicine. And I would say a lot of dietitians actually really go off of like the food pyramid, right? And then now the My Plate. And I actually just had a conversation with a dietitian when I went into her office, and she had the My Plate up there, So I think it's important to understand what's their specialty area. So there's over the last few years, there has been this select group of physicians, actually not, it's probably been like 10, 15 years now, but they're becoming more and more known in integrative and functional medicine, okay? So they're really fighting for the importance of diet and how diet impacts and nutrients impact these conditions. Because over the years, we've seen that conventional medicine, we're still having a lot of issues. Healthcare, isn't getting better, it's getting worse. And so I absolutely love that there's this, group of practitioners that really support the impact that diet can have on your body. And I would say that in the last 2 years, really, really streamlined and became really big. So because of that, now there's a group of integrative dietitians. Okay, so that's part of that's a group that I'm part of, and that was created basically because of doing this type of work. And it really, I think it's important to, if you're going to work with a dietitian, really understand what is their background. Okay, so like what do they recommend? Do they have experience working with inflammatory and autoimmune conditions? What's their approach? Do they believe in avoiding reactive foods? Because there is a lot of controversy. There's a lot of controversy between doctors. There's a lot of controversy between dietitians. And but I guess for me, I really roll down that holistic, integrative, and it's because of the impact that I've seen my clients have. So I get so much more fired up when I hear these testimonies. I just did a shoot the other day with 4 client testimonies, and it just brings me to tears when I hear how their lives have changed. And I love, I absolutely love how food can be medicine. And I think that our society is getting so much more processed, packaged foods. We're getting so many more meds on the market. And I think that there isn't as much time to spend with clients. And so with doctors too, in more conventional medicine, and this is changing, I think, especially with the integrative functional medicine doctors, they only get like 2 semesters of nutrition. The doctors only get like 1 or 2 semesters of nutrition, unless they specialize in that area. 7 years, a lot of these dietitians have of nutrition, and even the conventional dietitians still aren't showing, or thinking that diet could be that big of a deal. But if you study and you go in that area, you can really see the impact it can have. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think it's important to really understand what your provider is. What's their approach? What are they working towards? Are they conventional? Are they holistic? Are they functional? Do they do advanced testing? And, one of the big questions that I get is like, do you take insurance? Things like that. I used to be in network, but, I actually completely changed my model, and that model is because it changed because of what my clients need. My clients needed more than just someone that sat in the clinic with them and gave them a handout. My clients needed accountability. They needed more time to meal plan. They didn't know how to cook certain foods. They didn't know how to prepare those foods. They didn't know where to go and get them from the grocery store. They didn't know how to plan it. Their insurance said they could only go 3 times. So I don't go with insurance anymore because it doesn't help get the highest quality of care for my clients. It just doesn't. And so that's, I think that it's important to be able to see that, and this is a shift. I think it's a shift in healthcare. And the clinic, the doctors in integrative functional medicine, one of the leading doctors is at the Cleveland Clinic right now, doing advanced studies on this specific stuff. Showing, they asked him to come and have this clinic there so that we could see how your lifestyles, meditation, nutrition, nutrients, how all of those things affect your body rather than just going to a medication. Because I don't believe that it's a Prozac deficiency all the time. I don't think it's always deficiency in the newest medication. And so I like to get down to what is the cause, and what is the root cause, and how can we address that, and then how can we, address all these different areas, because I don't think it's just like this one problem. I think it's a variety of things that we kind of have to look at. Does that help answer that question? Okay, so a team approach, really important. So I like to coordinate care with doctors. I think it's really important. I think that I've always been like this. I think that clients can change, their provider's perspective. They changed my perspective, okay? Because you're the ones that are struggling, and so if you come back and you report how much better you feel, then I think that's going to change the mind of some practitioners, and they may look into more different types of studies. But if they haven't heard of anything, it might be because, you know, they weren't searching for it, or, you know, they're caught up in more, you know, medications rather than, you know, the food perspective of it. So these are just some things that I think is really important when you're working with a dietitian to focus on. And this is an example for me when I meet. This is my medical records that I use when I meet with a client. So this is the nutrition prescription that they received, and so this is an example of one of the very first consults, and this was just kind of introducing a smoothie, and so this was faxed to this client's provider. Okay, so that provider knows what they're doing. The provider only gets 20 minutes with you. I get 90 minutes. I get an hour, you know, to help make these changes. So I like to make sure that the doctors know about that. Also, that helps me, you know, stay with, you know, in the community, coordinate care with doctors. I've done a lot of presentations with the Fairview, and so they, you know, they want more of this holistic perspective. It's different because it's not just, well, here's the handout, we're going to decrease your carbs. No, it's looking at foods differently. And so if you're interested, I do in the back have business cards. I also have a sheet that you can fill out your name. You can do your email address, and I can send you a free gift. And this free gift is a little, it's kind of like a little ebook, like 4 pages of how to avoid the biggest mistakes when trying to identify allergies, food sensitivities, and intolerances. So Cynthia has that in the back. I'm really excited about that new free gift. It's actually brand new, so you'll be the first ones to get it. And then we'll be launching my new marketing campaign. So really excited about that. And then if anybody's interested in doing, I have like a nutrition discovery session. This is basically a time where it's like 20 minutes. It's a free consult where we talk and find out what's your big vision. We find out what are your goals, what do you want to work on, what do you want to resolve, what are the conditions that you're experiencing, and we do, you know, we talk about this tailored plan that's personalized and to meet your needs. So I actually only, because I do such an involved care with my clients, I don't see like 6 clients in a day. I see a select few clients every month. And my plan goes differently, where we actually meal plan based on your nutrient results or your food sensitivities. We have grocery outings. So we meal plan that food and go right to the grocery store right after that to get those things and navigate those things. So this isn't like, here's the vegetable area, here's the fruit area. It's, you know, we're like diving in and figuring out, you know, what you can't have, but more importantly, what you can have. So then you leave there feeling like you're empowered, that you got something you can do. This is actually me doing a VIP cooking day with one of my clients. This is a boy who has multiple seizures. Been on meds for a very long time. Grandpa actually is a doctor at the Mayo Clinic, just recently got diagnosed with autism. So revamping everything that he's eating, very high carb diet. This is us. This is his little brother. So he's 5 and he's 2. We were making flaxseed brownies. Okay, so it's very, very individualized, very tailored. And then this is my clinic that I work out of in Uptown, and then this is the information to contact me if you'd like. So that's it. And I also am on Facebook, so I have recipes on Facebook. I have articles on there that are really, supporting integrative functional medicine, really focus on autoimmune inflammatory conditions, and that's a really good way. Facebook. I'm going to be having a YouTube channel coming out with multiple videos, so I'm really excited for that. Instagram, so lots of ways that you can connect and kind of learn more about nutrition and how it impacts your condition. So that's it. And if you guys have any other questions, I'd love to answer them.
Yes. You were mentioning the gluten-free products that are kind of crappy. And I try to cook with gluten-free flour, and I had heard that those that are bean-based, like Avocado bean, is preferable to rice-based. You get more nutrition and protein out of that. Is that true, or can you just speak to that topic in general?
Yeah. Well, now a lot of the gluten-free products are going to be higher because they're substituting like rice, corn, quinoa, or different types of, and yeah, and the beans, they're going to be substituting that for the carb pieces. Okay, so you're going to see those carbs are up there, you know, and so that's probably why they were recommending a bean. Okay, like a garbanzo bean, but beans also, this is another part that gets a little scientific, but they have what's called phytic acid on them, and a lot of times that's like a protective thing, so beans can cause a lot of digestive issues with a lot of clients. So being processed and broken down, that might not be as much. Usually with beans you have to soak them, but I don't know what their process is before they make it into, you know, that flour.
So is there one you would recommend for baby?
I like coconut flour.
Coconut flour.
Yeah, really good. Coconut flour, almond flour too. That's gonna be those are gonna be a little bit heavier. I just made some coconut flour tortillas with, it was coconut flour and tapioca. It was actually pretty high in the carb ratio, but they were pretty thin. But still, you know, it was a really great thing to have when my grandparents came over and we wanted to have tilapia tacos or whatever, so, and I want them to have a taco. But yeah, I think that, like, it's good to play with all those different flours, but I think sometimes it's important to remember that carbs increase inflammation. So if you're having a bunch of carbs, it's driving up the inflammation, bringing down your omega-3s, which are helping to, you know, balance out that inflammation, so just kind of keep that in mind.
Could you back up just a little bit and talk a little bit briefly about that blood panel that you do for food sensitivity? Is that something done by your doctor and then sent to you, or how does that whole work?
Yeah, so the food sensitivities, that is one of the areas that I'm certified in. So that's like a test that I got advanced certification in to work with those results. So it's an immunologist and gastroenterologist that works out of Florida, and then they brought on dietitians because they found that they were better, you know, they would get better results if they didn't just, you know, avoid the reactive foods, but do a whole tailored elimination and reintroduction diet. So it's not one that you could just go to your doctor and get. It's one that you have to go with someone who, like a dietitian that is focused on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep, the doctor and I do. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Oh, okay. So that question was about like getting the test done, and if other doctors can do that test. Where do you go to do a food sensitivity test? There's a lot of different types of food sensitivity tests out there. There's LCAT, that's old version. It doesn't have it doesn't recognize like a specific endpoint for mediators like the one that I work with. You know, there's food allergy, that's a type of a test. So you could go to an allergist and you could do skin pricking, but like I showed kind of before, that's usually only like 1 to 3% of the population struggle with that. Did that help answer your question? Yeah. Any others? Yes.
I'm just curious because in your bio you mentioned that one of them is very adventurous, you didn't have to be hormonal. And I think that but I'm wondering about I'm wondering about the big stages like adolescence and pregnant moms or females, the big stages in your life, how well does it trigger some autoimmune stuff and the diet and the diet completely changed when you're hormonally selected. Like suddenly you can't have something. Like it happens. Like one day I woke up in a house and it went over 40. And I thought it was hormonal.
But maybe it's a food sensitivity.
Pardon?
But maybe it's a food sensitivity. Yeah, okay, so the question was, how, like, can hormones trigger autoimmune conditions?
Right, and then for diet, balance out, and diet impact hormonal.
Yes. So can autoimmune, so the question is, can autoimmune and diet be impacted by your hormones? Okay, or can your hormones be impacted by your diet? So yes, it can. You know what's really interesting is a lot of autoimmune conditions, the majority of it's women. Women go through the biggest hormonal fluctuations. So especially like when this is such a like topic all on its own, so I'll try to like condense it down. But so women are more prone when they get older, when they go through like menopause and different things like that, to have thyroid issues. Okay, like Hashimoto's, which is like an autoimmune condition. So when sometimes when you have like one autoimmune condition, there's multiple others that come along with it. So I do really believe that your hormones are playing a role here, and that's because nutrients actually make up these hormones. Okay, and nutrients, so like the neurotransmitters in your brain. This is why I love about how nutrition impacts mental health as well. It's because you need proteins, okay, and you need healthy fats and vitamins and minerals to actually create these hormones. These are the messengers that go throughout your body, right? And you need these hormones or those nutrients to create your neurotransmitters to send the messages like you're sleepy or you have energy. And so what can help balance your hormones is doing foods that are high in nutrients. So that's obvious, right? But more specifically, proteins actually make up these chemicals, and our diet has really changed over the last few years. And do we get adequate amounts of protein? Probably not. We get high amounts of carbohydrates. And these high amounts of carbohydrates cause a lot of inflammation. They cause a lot of hormonal imbalances. And so we also have really decreased the amount of fruits or vegetables or nuts or seeds. And these foods like almonds or sunflower seeds have protein, have these healthy fats, and they turn on and off messages, right, in our body. And so when you're getting these healthier protein sources and fat sources, they're balancing those hormones. And when you're under a lot of stress, okay, and that's a lot of times when these autoimmune conditions tend to get even worse, right? Because it imbalances your gut, but also stress imbalances your hormones. And for women, you have high amounts of cortisol levels, and how you get cortisol, right? The stress hormone, that's what cortisol is. It's released from your little teeny adrenal glands from the stress, from like running to get your kids, or trying to figure out what you're going to do for dinner, sitting in traffic, or the stress of everyday things, right? So you become so much more stressed, and that cortisol steals from your progesterone from your ovaries. Okay, so now you have a decreased amount of progesterone, higher amounts of estrogen, and our environment is full of estrogen. It's very estrogen dominant. Okay, plastics, estrogen, toxins, okay, fertilizers, pesticides, big hormonal disruptors. So going organic, it's something to learn about. And there's, things that they're doing to our foods, like genetically modifying foods, or they're spraying different things, or they're growing the food so that it sprays it itself. And that actually imbalances our hormones. And women become a little bit more sensitive to that than men. It's just what research is showing, that's women have more depression, women have more autoimmune conditions, women have more hormonal imbalances, the hysterectomies are like through the roof that we're having, so menstrual cycles are all, affected because of that as well. And so I think that it truly is related to your diet and not getting the right amount of nutrients. So we're deficient in a lot of magnesium. And magnesium is super important for, balancing those hormones. Helping to regulate cycles and things like that. So that's just like one nutrient and how it plays a role. B vitamins as well, super important. A lot of women are becoming more infertile as well. So I don't think it's just, you know, these autoimmune conditions that are related. I think there's like all of these symptoms that are really related to kind of like one thing, and it's really being deficient in you know, nutrients and vitamins and minerals, and then this overload of toxins that we can't excrete from our body, and just that compromised immune system because of it. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
I've been on the autoimmune protocol diet for about 4 months, and for Hashimoto, and it was recommended, you know, people have stayed on it for up to a year. Is that the same thing as the elimination diet?
No. Okay, so I have to repeat your question. So your question was, you were wondering if the autoimmune protocol is a diet that is similar to the reintroduction elimination diet that I'm talking about. No, because this is specific to your blood. So that diet isn't looking at your blood and how the foods that you're eating are causing release of chemicals, basically. However, there are a lot of diets out there that, you know, are that overlap, and they talk about, you know, maybe putting in more fiber or decreasing, you know, your proteins sources, and so and obviously getting like whole foods, so that's good. So that's along a similar line, and getting balance and getting off of processed foods. They may encourage you to decrease your toxic burden as well and go with organic or like grass-fed meats. So there's similar things that overlap. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Do you charge for consultation?
It's really figuring out what is the best path for a client. So everybody comes in different with different needs, and you know, needs different testing. So one client, I might say, you know, I'm really suspecting that you have fructose malabsorption. We should coordinate care with gastroenterologist and make sure that we get that test done, or lactose, or it just really kind of is a little bit more dependent. But my main focus that I bring people through, what they seek me out for, is the nutrient deficiencies, and to address the food allergies and sensitivities. Yeah. Anyone else? I don't think I repeated that question. That's okay. I think maybe I did. Okay.